Okay, so as we learned about computer hardware, last time we opened up the computer, we learned about the motherboard and the CPU. This time, we're going to learn a little bit about computer storage. So, here we go. I'm going to open the computer again, and inside, we can see that here's the heatsink we learned about last time, and here's the CPU, which we've already touched on, and the motherboard is the giant green thing. So, there are obviously more components in there, and the first one I want to talk about is this one right here, which is called RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, and a RAM stick fits into a motherboard quite easily. So I'm going to push down on this lever here, and again over here, and there you go. I've just taken out the RAM. So the RAM isn't too exciting. It's just a stick of, again, silicon, copper, and you can see it's got these connectors here, and they're metal plated so that the electricity can flow through them. And basically a RAM installation is me going like this and pushing down, and I hear a click, and that's it. I'm done. I just installed RAM into my computer. Okay, so that's what RAM looks like. That's where it goes. There's a special slot on the motherboard for it called a RAM slot. In this one, there's actually two. So if I click here and here, there's another one. So this computer has two sticks of RAM in it. And if I look really closely, it says 512 megabytes. So this is a 512 megabyte stick. This is a 512 megabyte stick. Total is about 1 gigabyte of RAM. So now that we've seen the RAM, what is it? Well, RAM is essentially short-term memory for your computer. Think of it this way. Your brain, hopefully right now, is thinking about computers and thinking about learning about computers, because that's what's happening right now. And so RAM's job is to hold the resources that will help the programs that you want to use right now run better. So for example, let's say that you have a browser open. You probably have Chrome open or Firefox. Well, RAM would have all of the resources necessary to run Chrome or Firefox. And if in another window you have, Microsoft Word open, then maybe it has the resources needed to run that. But if you have, video games like Halo or Call of Duty installed on your computer, if you're not running them, then that stuff is not in the RAM. The RAM only holds the information for the things that you're doing right now. Okay? And that's why the things that you're using right now, they are gonna, they're gonna run a lot faster than the things that aren't running. If I go and click on some program that I haven't run in a while, it takes a little bit of time for it to open up. But with RAM, it holds the resources that are going to keep the current programs running more smoothly. So obviously, the same with the CPU. If I get a faster CPU, my computer is going to work better. With RAM, if I get more RAM, then I'm going to have kind of a lot of people refer to RAM as like a scratch space. So kind of like scrap paper, where what I'm doing right now, I can make notes, it's the most recent thing. So if I have more RAM, I'll have more room to store resources in, which is going to make those programs run faster. So in this particular case, I only have 2 slots for RAM, so I couldn't add additional RAM if these were installed. I would have to go to the store and buy bigger sticks of RAM. I couldn't add more because there's no more. But there are other motherboards, such as this one here, and you can see here's some RAM installed here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 RAM slots on this one. And so again, installing RAM is super, super easy. All you do is line it up, and then you just push and you'll hear a click. I didn't hear it that well there. But anyway, that's a RAM install. So again, the key to RAM stands for Random Access Memory. These little things, the black things, let's see if you can see this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the chips that actually hold information. How they do that is beyond the scope of this course. It's using something called logic gates. But basically what you need to know is that in here, all of the most recent current information that the computer needs to run the programs you're running right now. That's what's in there. Okay? Okay, so now you've learned a little bit about RAM and how RAM stores information for the computer. It holds on to data, and it holds on to the data that the computer needs right now for the programs that are running right now. Okay? The problem with RAM is that when the computer turns off, all of the information on the RAM sticks disappears. And that's not exactly a good thing. Imagine you just finished writing a document and you save your work and then you turn it back on and RAM says, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing there." So we obviously need a permanent form of storage for our data. And RAM is not that. That's a very important point. RAM is temporary, fast storage. Okay, so think of this like in your bedroom. RAM is your bedside table. We keep things on our bedside table that we need to access all the time really quickly, but it would be nice to have some permanent storage. So the permanent storage in your bedroom would be like your closet, where you can throw things in your closet. You don't have to worry about them for a long period of time. And that is where hard drive comes in. So hard drive is a little different because I'm not going to open up this computer and I'm not going to find a hard drive. And that's not because a computer can function with it. You have to have a hard drive in order for a computer to run. Even that sentence itself is changing, but for the most part, computers have hard drives in them. But this one doesn't have a hard drive in it, and that's because this is a school computer that I'm using that was e-waste, and before they throw computers away, they take the hard drives out of them. And usually, and some companies will go as far as to completely wreck the hard drive. And the reason is because the hard drive is where all of the data sits permanently. So if I'm working for a company and someone like Google or Microsoft or the Department of Defense is a good example, where there's stuff on the hard drives that maybe I don't want the competitors to get, well, I don't want anybody to go and fish the computer out of the garbage and then grab the hard drive and all of a sudden they've got all the data. So this is what a hard drive would look like. This is without a cover on. So a hard drive is a rectangular piece. There we go. And normally there's a metal cover on top, so you wouldn't be able to see this spinning wheel. Okay, but I've taken it off just for learning. I'll show you a quick example. That's what a laptop hard drive looks like, all encased. Okay, so this hard drive here is a desktop hard drive, meaning for a bigger computer. And I've taken the top off of it, which made it useless as soon as I did that. But what happens with a hard drive is that the hard drive hooks up to the motherboard using a cable. So there's a cable that's attached to the motherboard on one end, and then if I were to plug this right here, there, so you can see this cable now attaches to the hard drive. So basically the motherboard asks the hard drive for information. The information flows from this disk through the cable to the motherboard, and then it goes to wherever it's needed, the processor, and that's how your computer accesses data. So looking a little bit closer at this, if you've ever seen an old school record player, a hard drive is not that far off of that. What we have is a spinning disk, and the disk spins ridiculously fast. The spin speeds are usually 5,400 RPM, which is rotations per minute, or 7,200. Okay, so it's a very, very, very fast spinning disk. And this looks like a needle. It's not a needle. This reads magnetic information off of the disk. And that's why I said as soon as I took the cover off of this hard drive, I wrecked it. And that's because dust will get on top of this, and one particle of dust will do very bad things to a hard drive. And once this is demagnetized, again, the hard drive is useless. And so if you were to bring a magnet near a functional hard drive, all of a sudden you run the risk of losing data. So the computer works by telling this arm to read the magnetism off of the disk super, super, super fast. And it does that, and that's why you often hear your computer grinding, and that's the sound of, well, maybe not grinding, but working. That's the sound of this needle going back and forth really, really fast, trying to find information on here, or if you're saving a file, writing information to here. But these hard drives are essentially what drive data storage. If later we're going to talk about how the internet works and how places like Facebook and Google store your information. Right here, this is where all of your information is stored. It's on these hard drives. So let's recap. A hard drive is meant for long-term data storage. If I have a computer for 5 years, I can have data from all 5 years on there. I might have done a file in 2016 and I can go to access it on here and it's going to be there. Whereas RAM is not. RAM's just temporary storage. This storage is typically accessed slower than RAM. So if I want to go and get a file off of here from 2016, I haven't used it in a long time, once I find it in Windows, I can get it. It might take a little bit to load it, whereas RAM, if I have something already loaded into RAM, it's going to load super fast. Okay? So long term, a little slower, whereas RAM, short term, faster. And this one, this hard drive, is like your bedroom closet, whereas RAM is like your bedside table. Okay? Hard drives are changing all the time. I mean, computers are always changing all the time, and so these videos I'm making are going to be outdated shortly, but I did want to bring up this. So this is a desktop hard drive with a spinning wheel inside of it. And what I have here, this is a laptop hard drive, so it's smaller, so this would go inside of a laptop. But the other thing about this one is this, I believe, checking as I say it, but this is an SSD, which stands for solid state drive. So this is what's typically referred to as an HDD, or a traditional hard drive, where you have a moving part. Okay, so this is constantly spinning, and that's how the data is accessed. A solid state drive does not have any moving parts. It's almost like RAM, except it's long term. So what I'm saying to you is, if I were to have made this video about 10 or 15 years ago, this is the only kind of hard drive I would have talked about. But now, computers have changed, and you can go and buy one of these small little hard drives. It's still a hard drive, that's called solid state. And the solid state drive has no moving parts, and it acts like RAM, so it's very fast in terms of accessing your information. So now we're talking, I'm trying to set these up. Now we're talking this versus this. So with a hard drive like this, compared to this one is going to be slower. This one is going to be much less expensive though. This one is going to be faster in terms of accessing your data. It'll access your data much faster. But this one's going to be more expensive. So that's the trade-off there. Because solid state drives are typically, I can't think of anyone who would say a solid state drive is, let me start that over. A solid state drive will always outperform a normal hard drive. It'll be faster, better, no moving parts, so less chance of breaking. There's lots of really good things about these solid state drives. The only thing is price. It's going to be cheaper for you to go out and buy one of those versus this, and also you're going to get more gigabytes for your money on this one, or terabytes now. In other words, you're going to get you can store more on one of these versus one of these if you're talking about spending around the same amount. You can spend a ton of money and get the same kind of storage capacity, but on a typical hard drive like this, you can spend about, $100 and you're going to get a couple terabytes, whereas if you want to get the equivalent sized solid state drive, you're going to be spending quite a bit more than that. Okay, so we have hard drives. We got two different types. We got the HDD, or the traditional one. We got the solid state drive, which is the more modern one. Slower access, faster access, more expensive, less expensive, more expensive, stores more information, stores less information. And there's your summary. Okay, so there's your storage synopsis for computers: hard drive and RAM.